President Trump, we are very hopeful, so hopeful that you can help me, you can help us to bring back our loved ones. We need you. We actually need you. I'm begging for your help. We cannot do it alone. We need your government to be the sheriff in the Middle East and help us to win over terror, to win over evil. We need someone brave like you to do so. We need someone brave to help us and destroy terrorism in the Middle East.
Joining me today, it's January 6th, 2025. It's day 458 of the Israel-Hamas war. And joining me today is Eli David. His brother Evyatar has been held hostage for the past 458 days. Eli, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with the beginning, and the beginning is not October 11th, but can you tell me a little bit about Evyatar and your childhood, where you're from in Israel, and what he's like as a person?
That's my favorite part in every conversation. Evyatar is my younger brother. I'm 27 and he's 24 already. He just marked his 24th birthday last week. So it's...
and that's his second birthday in captivity?
Yeah, his second birthday. All of his third year was underground in Hamas captivity. Just remember what you did when you were 23. And he, all of that year, he lived in fear in the hands of terrorists. It's crazy just to think about it. It's unthinkable, but that's reality. So I was something like 4 when he was born. Originally, we live in Kfar Saba, which is a small town 20 minutes from Tel Aviv. And we grew up together. We had a pretty standard childhood. We went to the same schools. We went to the same activities after school. And we were very close. We also, like all of the family, not only, also our uncles and cousins, they live close to us in Kfar Saba. So we kind of grew up together, all of us, and we have cousins in our ages. So we were a big, happy family. We also have another sister. She's 19. She was drafted to the army during, and I think...
So your brother's been in captivity, and she actually entered the IDF while he is still in captivity?
Yeah. She wanted to feel...
Was that a hard decision?
Yeah, it was. It was.
And what...
It was.
Can you run through a little bit of what that was like, making that decision, or did your family? Was it... Because obviously you have every excuse to not do it.
Yeah, I prefer not to speak about it.
No problem. Okay. Okay, so... And you grew up in a religious house?
No. We're actually non-religious. My father, he grew up in a religious house, so we had something like a combination in our house. We are doing Kiddush every Friday night. We bless the wine and everything. And the holidays are very important to us. Every holiday we gather and eat a family meal. And the family is very important for us. The family things in the religion is what's important for us. But we also have, like, our bigger family is very diverse. We have also very religious people and also people like ultra-Orthodox religious, but we also have very non-religious people in our family. And we grew up like that. Like, we know everybody, and...
So diverse family background. And how did Evyatar end up at the Nova Festival? Is he a music aficionado? He loves music?
Yeah, it starts from that. He loves music. He plays the guitar since he's 12, and he's very, very talented. I think the thing I'm jealous about him the most is his determination. He can sit like hours straight practicing on the guitar, something he wants to learn, and I think that's amazing. And I also hope that he, making music right now underground somehow. And he also loves celebrating and he loves parties, and it's something he does it since he's in high school. Actually, he goes to festivals with his friends, and this Nova, it wasn't new to him because he went to the previous Nova, which was around March or April, with the same friends, by the way. So they were like a group. So it was like
where was that held?
usual. The festival was held very close to Gaza Strip, something like several kilometers from the border fence. It's around Kibbutz Reim. It's right between Kibbutz Reim.
No, I'm saying the
Kibbutz
first
Reim.
one, the one before.
I'm not sure where it was. Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in the other side of the country, like in the
Okay.
Arava Desert.
Got it. Okay, so on October 6th, he departs your house. That's the last time you saw him?
Yeah. I had the privilege, actually, I don't live with my parents. I don't live in Kfar Saba for 5 years. I live in Jerusalem. And it was by chance that I went to see my family, because usually I don't go every Friday. So I really had the privilege to give him a hug and say goodbye, just like 12 hours before. And yeah, I just gave him a hug and a kiss. It was a normal Shabbat holiday dinner. Usually we sit down to play music together after the dinner. Like, that's our connection. That's what we do every time we meet. And this time he was in a hurry because he wanted to arrive early to the festival area. So he took my mom's car, picked up his friends, and at midnight he was already there.
When did you realize something was wrong?
So 6:30 a.m. was the alarm started. And I know some of the listeners are not aware of that, but when the alarm starts, it means that rockets are being shot at you in Israel, so you have to run to the bomb shelter. So that's what we did. We woke up, and it is very unusual to hear the alarms in Kfar Saba. So we understood by the minute that it's a declaration of war. We ran to the bomb shelter. My mom tried to reach out to him via WhatsApp. And at the beginning, he said something like, they're blowing up their party. Like, they saw like thousands of rockets above their heads. And he said something like, yeah, we see all the rockets above us. But he didn't give us any feeling that something bad is going on. Like, he was very calm about the situation. 7:42 a.m. he sent my mother that they are in a couple of minutes we go out. So, and that's what it was, his last message. 2 a.m. After that, my mom opens TV. She saw terrorists on white trucks inside Sderot, which is the city, the Israeli city, the closest Israeli city to Gaza. And when she understood that there are dozens, maybe hundreds of terrorists already inside Sderot, it means that they are currently moving to the festival area. And she stayed awake. I got back to sleep, and 9 a.m. I hear my mom's crying. So I wake up. It's very, very unusual that my mom is crying. And I immediately understood something bad is going on, immediately understood that it's connected to Evyatar. And then she told me that Evyatar is disconnected and there are terrorists in the festival. She saw on TV, she cannot reach him. His phone is not answering. Also, his friends' phones disconnected. So just imagine how we felt. We felt like he can be, maybe he threw his phone and he's in an hour, he will be here knocking the door. But on the other hand, it felt like we had the same chance that he's dead already, lying somewhere. And it was terrifying.
So you had no idea what had happened. And for those of you tuning in who might not be so familiar, Evyatar and his friends were at a music festival. They were not at a military base. They were not committing genocide. They were not with guns. They were with, if anything, drinking, having a good time, dancing to trance music. And these savages came across the border, led by well-trained terrorists in an army, and after them came civilians. So civilians from Gaza came running in, parading around, stealing property, killing people, raping people, and there was no regard for whether or not it was a military person or if it was an innocent civilian. So Evyatar had absolutely nothing to do with the army. He was not in the army. He was at a dance party. This is not a military member who was captured in an act of war. This is someone at a dance party. So people go to Taylor Swift, they go to Beyonce, they go to Jay-Z, any other artist, and they expect that they can have a good time and come home. And that was 458 days ago. When did you realize that he'd been captured, and how did you realize that?
So we actually had like the most terrifying hours I had in my entire life. We tried to do everything to reach out to him and look for his name online, and we picked up every stone, but he disappeared, like completely. We know that 3,000 people went to celebrate at the Nova Festival. 3,000 from different places around the world. They came all the way to Israel, and almost 400 were murdered, butchered. Some of them were raped along the way. Almost 40 kidnapped. And that, it took us something like 2 weeks to understand the dimension of that event. People, as you said, just people went to have fun inside their own country at the legitimate borders of Israel, just having fun, celebrating the fact that they are young and beautiful. 2 of his friends were killed on the spot. And we know that because it took something like 4 days to recognize the body, and we understood that they were killed by a rocket, like an RPG missile.
Have you received recordings from Dashcam or anything that shows him at the site?
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually we had a lot of recordings. Those savages recorded everything from the minute they took him to the minute they broadcasted a propaganda video through Telegram. And at the same day, around 2 p.m., we got 2 videos from Telegram. In one of them, we saw his shirt torn. He was without his glasses. He was tied up, hands behind his back, and a terrorist was holding him from his neck, holding a gun in his other hand, a Kalashnikov, and he was just dragging him inside Gaza Strip. Evyatar was standing at that point, and it was somewhat encouraging. At the second video, we saw 5 young men. I didn't recognize them. I saw how the cameraman, he was zooming to the faces, one by the other. They wanted us to recognize those people. It's part of the terror they are applying on us, the psychological terror. And the 4th guy was Evyatar, and he was looking straight into the camera, lying on the floor. He was terrified. I never saw someone that scared in my entire life. You could see the fear, primal fear in his eyes. And right next to him was Guy Gilboa Dalal, his childhood friend who went with him to that festival, also tied up and confused. And just to see Evyatar, I felt like somebody's piercing my guts, and I felt it from the top to bottom, like I'm going to explode from anger and frustration and helplessness. I saw it alone, by the way, first, because, I could see Hamas released so many executions videos that day, and I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'm going to see an execution of my younger brother. So I was very cautious. I took the phone to see it alone. And then I told my family Evyatar is kidnapped. And after that, all the videos we got, all the recordings are from the same day. We don't have more recordings. We had a recording of a Gazan photographer who just filmed Evyatar while he was thrown into a pickup truck inside Gaza Strip. And you could see the civilians around trying to beat him. And later, the army gave us footage from from the kidnapping area, from the festival, where the terrorists wore their head cameras or chest cameras. So we actually saw how they took Evyatar from the bush he was hiding and how they dragging him on the road, on the main road, and there are like dozens of those videos.
It's important to note that the same people who are complaining that they don't have enough humanitarian aid are many of the people who are cheering and applauding and actually beating your brother.
Yeah.
Beating
Those people
Evyatar.
are the same people that are getting humanitarian aid from Israel. I mean, Israel is giving.
Yes.
Yeah, Israel is giving that aid. The European Parliament is giving that aid, and many other so-called humanitarian organizations.
They're also the same ones who are making TikTok videos and Instagram, putting out propaganda saying that they're starving, that there's a genocide, and everything along those lines. And they're the same people that were beating Evyatar over the head as he was being dragged in by terrorists. Just so the world understands what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, the pickup truck video which I mentioned it was a civilian who took that footage. I mean, it's not a terrorist, it's a civilian who wanted to show the world in his own personal Instagram page that the people of Gaza captured so-called soldiers. He called them soldiers because kidnapping innocent people is wrong. So they call them soldiers.
Well, I think also it's a step further. It's basically because Israel's a conscripted army and majority of Israeli citizens contribute to the army or Shirut Limi. I'm not going to talk about the Haredim right now, but that they try to say that because someone may or may not have at one time been a soldier, therefore they classify them as a soldier. And I don't want to jump ahead, but we'll get to that in 1 second when it comes to hostage deals. What's your relationship been with the army in the days after, and the weeks and now year plus? Have you had a positive relationship? Are you angry? Have you been having good contact and getting information as you guys want?
First, I'm angry about how the army operated the borders till October 7th. And how the army and all of the security system in Israel operated. The narrative was false. We thought we could control terror instead of destroying it, and it blew up in our faces. So I am very angry about it and disappointed. But since that day, we saw many brave people. On that day also, I mean, people which are not soldiers and also soldiers who fought bravely to save so many innocent lives, and also many of my friends who got drafted on October 8th to protect the borders up north and also to fight Hamas terrorists inside Gaza Strip. And I know that what they have in their mind is not killing terrorists, it's saving the hostages. That's the amazing thing here, which I think people are not understanding. The soldiers are fighting to save lives, not to kill people. And that's maybe the biggest difference between us and the terror organization Hamas.
And the soldiers are willing to give their own life to potentially get your brother home.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
They'll do it with or without the proper equipment. That's what I've been involved in. And they'll go and fight in Gaza in flip-flops and socks or jeans, shorts.
Whatever. Yes.
It doesn't matter. They feel an obligation and they're doing holy work in that way. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to comment, but when I see Aaron Khaliva from 8200 now in Thailand and prancing around with a pension and everything like this, my blood boils because your family is still on October 7th and he was in charge with a lot of stuff and others too. It's very frustrating. And I can only imagine what it's like being in your shoes, seeing that, because you guys are there and deserve, answers, but you're not even at the answer stage because you need your brother home now. What's it been like now for the last 458 days now being very public? Because you're living regular lives, you're normal people, and then next thing you know, you are in the fight of your lives trying to get your brother home. Can you go into what that's been like for the last 458 days?
I can try. It's very complicated. I feel like most of the time I'm Evyatar's brother. I mean, I feel like I'm on a mission. It's a death or life mission. So I'm constantly at fight mode, and everything I do is very important. So I don't care being public. I don't care doing anything if I believe it's going to help Evyatar coming back home. Everything I do feel almost sacred because it's about saving life. And because it's my younger brother, which I feel like it's my duty to protect him. And I failed on October 7th, but now I have to fight. And as you said about the soldiers, I'm willing to sacrifice my life as well. I know it will not help, so I'm not doing it. But it's fight mode constantly. And I'm doing it by talking, by speaking everywhere I can. In Israel and abroad, to everybody who is willing to listen. And it's tough because you don't know when it will end. We are saying, the hostages family, sometimes we say that it feels like a very, very, very long day. It's a continuing nightmare, which will end only when the hostages will come back. And in order to, because we don't know when it will end, it's much harder. Because if we had, a deadline, it was so much easier. We could manage our fuel sources, our energy much better. But right now I have to live with uncertainty. I don't know how much time Evyatar will spend underground at the end of terrorists. So
you're saying
you kind of learn how to live with that situation when you have to take care of yourself as well, and I have to take care of my parents and my younger sister. So
when you're saying underground, have you received confirmation that that's where he is and that he's alive? Have you received signs of life?
We also had hostage who spoke about Evyatar. He saw him. I cannot say when and who, but we had this very important sign of life. As we know, Evyatar is also underground. So it was a period of time until June. We didn't know for sure if Evyatar is where he's held. And after Operation Arnon, after the rescue operation, which brought Noah Argamani, Almog, Andrei, and Shlomi, the army told us that the terrorists moved all the hostages who were, in apartments or things like that, underground. So we know that Evyatar is there at least since June, and that the conditions underground are terrible, terrible, terrible. They don't have clean air underground. We heard what the rescued hostages told us. They don't have sufficient food. They don't have clean water. They barely have any medical treatment down there. Some of them are ill, some of them are wounded, and that's without counting the psychological aspect of being underground and being held by a terrorist, which can manipulate you all the time. That's very, very scary to think that even strong men, as myself, as my brother, we have a limit. We have a limit. At some point, we will break. Also people like us. And I'm afraid that many will reach that limit.
What has your relationship been like with the Israeli government? Do you think that they're doing what they can to get the hostages home? There have been, it seems to be, multiple camps within the hostage families. Obviously, there are so many different opinions in Israel, right? In one family at a kitchen table, you probably have 17 different opinions about the prime minister or about the defense minister or about any random topic in Israeli society. So when you put 200 plus families together in a room. I can only imagine what that's like. Now that there are, the situation is as it is, there's some families that unfortunately know that people are not alive, but their bodies are held there. If people that are alive, you have signs of life. If people that are alive and you don't have signs of life. In addition to how it's been with the government, what's that like trying to figure out messaging?
So, first of all, it depends. It depends. Since October 7th, and also before, I didn't feel like I can put my full faith in my leaders' hands. It's complicated with the government. I see ministers all the time in very private conversations. We come to their offices every week, and some of them are like very willing to speak with us. Some of them are only empathetic. Some of them are really like saying that we are doing everything we can and all of that. But I'm trying to like create a strong agreement in Israeli society. Like I go to many places around the country, trying to speak with people which are very different for myself, and just talking with them about Evyatar, about myself, about my cry to release all the hostages. And people are listening, and that's what's beautiful in it, that people who saw hostage family on TV, and the messaging was manipulated by the media. Now they see me and they speak me in person, and they get something completely else. And the same for me. I saw people in TV, and then I meet them, and the conversation is completely different. And I discovered that there is not a single person who doesn't want the hostages back home in Israel. It's only a matter of how we do it. And I think most of the people of Israel are willing to also pay like big prices to bring back the hostages. And that's the important part. In the families, it's hard. Sometimes it's very hard, but we also have, like, we do brainstorming. And because we are so different, there are so many interesting ideas. So we try everything we can together. We go and we travel the world to speak with leaders everywhere. And we are trying to use the knowledge we have about the media together to counter the manipulations that the media is doing.
It's an insanely difficult situation. I want to provide a little context as I see it here sitting in America. Within the last week, I've spoken to you, and I'm speaking to you. I've spoken to a sibling of someone who was killed fighting for the army on October 7th, and would feel personally betrayed by his country if there was a deal that did not ensure that Hamas was completely defeated. And I've also spoken to families that lost their son fighting, and they say we need a deal now because we don't want any more soldiers or hostages to die. And I've also spoken to people who, they had loved ones that were in captivity and got out, and they say, you see the military pressure doesn't work. And then you have people that the hostages, and they say the military pressure does work. And then you have the people who are fighting saying, I'll do anything. And you have people that are fighting and saying, why are we even doing this? Because we know we're going to need a deal. And then you have families that just want their loved ones. And like you said, there's not a single person that doesn't want the hostages home. It's just a matter of how. And it's really hard to get nuance in that situation. And I'm not looking to cut politicians any slack. It's just trying to give a review of what they're receiving. In the same day that they would meet with someone who's desperate, saying, I need my brother, sister, son, daughter home immediately, you have someone coming into the office and saying, you'd be betraying your people if you made a bad deal because my son died for this country and this is a bad deal. And it's the opposite of good situation, and it's extremely delicate. And I really appreciate how you phrased it before, because it's not, it's impossible choices. There's no good option. There's just less bad, and trying to figure out the less bad option is crazy, because at the end of the day, Israel's also negotiating directly, indirectly with a terrorist organization that just raped, murdered Israelis and has sacrificed its own people to make propaganda by not building bomb shelters, not by trying to bring them to safety, but by stealing aid, by leaving them above ground, by positioning them close to rocket launching sites, and don't care at all about their people. And these are the leaders and the people that Israel's supposed to negotiate with. It's not so straightforward. And also setting things up for the future. And obviously, in the Gilad Shalit deal, Sinwar was released, and we see what happened. And I actually don't know how anybody who's involved in making those decisions would be able to sleep at night. I really have absolutely no idea, because the decisions are not, there's not a good decision.
Yeah, it's all bad. By the way, I just said that the same Sinwar, after he was released, he said, in one of his speeches, you can check me, he said, I am willing to sacrifice 100,000 Palestinians if it means that we defeat Israel. So that's their narrative. Like they have no problem to sacrifice their own people, and it's fucked up. And as you said, it's an impossible situation, and we are trying to choose the least bad solution. I think that the military pressure is doing bad things and good things. I mean, it's all very complicated. It's not military pressure
Nothing ever is straightforward. Because, for example, I'll give you something that this happens in America, right? Because a lot of families come to America, they're trying to meet with Biden administration, now future Trump administration, and certain politicians here have a vision of how Israel looks and functions. You have people, certainly before October 7th, but also after October 7th, that come in and tell a congressperson in America that Benjamin Netanyahu is a criminal and we can't trust him and he needs to go and he is the death of Israel. I mean, this is actual quotes.
Yeah,
so if you're
right,
so as a congressperson or a senator in America, you're confused, and it does a lot of bad things to the relationship between America and Israel, and also in actually helping the cause, because there are certain things that you can have a disagreement and talk about it, I'll call it quote unquote in the family, but it's very different when it's on a stage or using this kind of language against democratically elected leaders of Israel in a different country. And it's a difference if you protest a Knesset member in Israel versus showing up with picket signs in America. I think it's just a different situation, and it's something that's been it's hard to watch from the sidelines and see it happening, because I know that in almost everyone's heart, we all want the same solution, which is to get the hostages home safely. And if it was simple, it would have been done already, right? It's not simple. If it was simple, it would have been done in 1 second. The Trump administration is going to be entering power in 14 days, January 20th. What are you hoping to see from the Trump administration?
I hope Trump's government will stop the humanitarian aid, or at least will take control on the humanitarian aid, because as we said before, Hamas is using this aid in order to control its citizens and fueling its soldiers, its terrorists. On October 2023, Israel blocked all the aid which was coming to enter Gaza. And it made miracles. It made the first deal, which released 105 hostages from captivity. And the promise the promise Israel made, was opening the blockade and entering hundreds of trucks of aid every day. And that was the big change, because Hamas needed desperately those trucks. He needed that aid. And if Trump would stop that aid, I think it will help us to bring back the hostages. It was very efficient, so I believe it will be efficient again. And also, I think that Hamas, because they have very different narrative than Western people, and they need to understand that they don't have a future in Gaza. The only future they have is if they will release the hostages and go out of Gaza. I think that's the best solution we can make.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, specifically Palestinian Street. According to Palestinian opinion polls, the majority of Palestinians support October 7th and actually think it was a good thing. So how do you deal with that reality?
That's also complicated.
Oh, I thought that all the questions were easy in the Middle East.
So
I thought that's what it was. Right. I mean, I'll say from my perspective that the Palestinian nationalism is a death cult, and they are glorifying killing innocent civilians, and the national narrative is replacing Israel, quite literally.
Yeah.
And that's not a narrative that's sustainable.
You're right. I think we also need to be realistic. We cannot transfer all of these people to somewhere else. We cannot. It's more than 2 million people. Only in Gaza there are something like 2 million. And maybe we can try and re-educate those people who grew up on war, like they normalized killing, and they normalized that it's okay to be killed in the name of the Palestinian flag or whatever. So
I hope that would happen, except for the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu and the Knesset has offered something like $5 million to one Palestinian who would find a hostage or point out where they've seen activity. And there has been no Palestinian that stepped forward and successfully done that. So,
yes, because I think they are still afraid of the day after. They are still afraid that if they will snitch, then they will be killed, they will be slaughtered, their family will be slaughtered and hang from their necks at the main square of Gaza. And that's something we cannot allow. That's something that the biggest democratic country in the world, which is the US, should eliminate. And I think if we can remove the head of the snake and again try to re-educate those people. We know that in Arabia and Saudi they change their education system completely. They did not taught students about Israel. They said Jews were devils and so on, and now it's completely different. And that's something we can at least try.
I hope it works.
We cannot control so many people which are full of hate and only want to kill us and destroy us. We cannot control them. So at least we can try and re-educate them. And I think at first we need to remove the head of the snake. After that, something good can enter.
Right. If you have one message for President Trump or President-elect Trump, if you have one message for President-elect Trump, what's that?
So President Trump, we are very hopeful, so hopeful that you can help me, you can help us to bring back our loved ones home. We need you. We actually need you. I'm begging for your help. We cannot do it alone. We need your government to be the sheriff in the Middle East and help us to win over terror, to win over evil. And we need someone brave like you to do so. We need someone brave to help us and destroy terrorism in the Middle East. And I only want my younger brother home, but there are 100 hostages that are suffering right now and they are dying and they have to come back to their homes.
President Trump got shot and bounced up like 10 seconds later. So if there's any hope for someone being able to deal with these evil people, I think President Trump's going to do a great job when it comes to that. And I think he understands it very clearly. As he said, there's going to be hell to pay if the hostages aren't returned by January 20th. So let's see what happens.
I believe him.
So do I. At least let's put it this way. It's a real enough threat that they should really be taking this seriously. But again, the fundamental difference when it comes to the Palestinian leaders is that they do not care about their people. So the idea that there wouldn't be food or there wouldn't be water or that another 12 buildings would be blown up, I don't think they actually care at all when it comes to their people. In fact, it would actually increase some of what they can put on propaganda sites like Al Jazeera and things like that. So I do hope that some sensible person can take charge and actually do something there.
I hope as well.
But I know that President Trump is going to lead the United States in a much more stern fashion to bring the hostages back to Israel. Eli, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you're doing for Evyatar and all the hostages and the continued advocacy on his behalf. God willing, we'll be able to do a recap interview with Evyatar sitting right next to you.
Amen.
And it will be amazing to hear about how he got back. And it should happen very soon. He should come back peacefully and sound mind. And I look forward to seeing you and him back at your parents' Shabbat table, Yom Tov table. Maybe you'll go to the rave with him, maybe you won't. But the next one,
I think I
look
will.
forward. You will? So I look forward to that. And just know that people in the United States and all over the world are continuing to pray for him, your entire family, the hostages, and trying to do whatever we can to help. And you have global Jewish community and everyone who cares about the state of Israel behind you. There's not 1 second that you're alone in this fight. We're here with you. And we should have really good news very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for the stage and thank you for the kind words.